Okay, I know they're few and far between, but I'm a busy guy. All right, so anyway, Mace was awesome. For Shaintar, it may have been the most validating experience at a con I've had, at least for a very long time. I mean, not taking anything away from any of the other shows, but I had folks travel from all over, right? Cons I'd been at before, and just coming from just for Shaintar. Richard, dude, awesome. And old friends who'd shown up and played, as well as brand new people who never played Savage Worlds before, much less Shaintar, or played very little Savage Worlds, and then just fell in love with the setting. So, I mean, it was just wow. All the slots just way early filled, but I always build a little extra in there to make sure some walk-ups can play, and we had full tables every time, and there was a real wishing that I had run more. But I ran 3 games, and they were good. They were all based on a storyline called Bloody Awful. That was the name I came up with, but it was Carinn's idea. It was brilliant. It went really well. It sang. The people who played had a good time each individual time. Those who actually were there for 2 or 3, especially the finale, they got a really nice payoff, narratively speaking. I was also very proud to be part of the Savage World's 10th anniversary celebration that happened very specifically there. Jeff and Ron, and the Beautiful Brains folks. Beautiful Brains folks, we all know who they are. It's Jody and Clint, who are also, pinnacle. But we're all one big happy family. But I'm a part of that family, and they made me feel a part of it very much. I mean, Shane, dude, you blew me away when you asked me to come up there and be part of the picture and the big presentation. So thank you. It was nice to know how much I am valued and considered part of the home team, so to speak. And uh, thank you for the love, brother. I love you back. I also got to play for the first time ever at a Saturday night. I mean, I kind of helped start the thing, right? And I always ran, always. If I'm at a con at Saturday night, I run, but they didn't schedule me to run, so I got to play, and I played in Dan and Dave's Battle for Oz. Cool. It was a lot of fun. I apparently played a very memorable Tinman with the name of Rik Fiddler. He's not a fiddler like this. He fiddles with stuff. Gun out of the chest. It was cool. So fun stuff there. I see a lot of potential in that. I'm looking forward to the crossover between that and Shaintar. Back to the Shaintar stuff. Let me go ahead and summarize what happened. Bloody Awful. Basically, it turns out a number of Delir folk, not high up in the Delir family. Delir family basically is like the ruling family of the Shaintar Nation, which is the realm of darkness up in the northeast corner. Anyway, they were down in the south. They had integrated themselves in with a number of Red Store people, and they were selling floaters. A specific floater, in fact, called Scarlet Dram, which has very addictive properties. Starts out, and it's like a little shot size thing. It's kind of like a little mini Bloody Mary, basically. Tomatoey and spicy and salty and very, very tasty. And it gives people a lot of energy and strength and focus. And it's a floater. Floaters in Shaintar are basically, that's the name for drugs. It's an alchemical concoction with various things in it. Anyway, after a while, they get really addicted, and then they start becoming very aggressive, and then they become berserkers, and eventually they are doomed to turn into leechmen. Leechmen are creatures they're a type of Bane from the Accursed RPG. So yeah, this was a big tie-in to the Accursed stuff from Amelia via Ross Watson, John Dunn, Jason Marker. So this was a part of that crossover stuff. So the Rangers were tracking this down, and they were dealing with berserk townsfolk, and good on them, right, for not killing most of those guys. They were just knocking them out. I mean, in a couple of situations, they really didn't have as much of a choice because their own people were starting to get killed, or nearly so. I almost killed one player in the first one because these guys were nasty. But they managed to get through, and they, for the most part, knocked people out. And then, of course, now there's processed droids, and people are going to have to try to help them get off the floater. But they encountered a vampire, the first one, named Kennedy, and he escaped. During the final battle, it's a very, very clever thing that one of the players did was shoving a cloth in the top vent thing that was going out the top of the building, which caused all the noxious fumes and stuff to drive all the guards out. It was a really, really cool moment. They got in there, he got away. So they tracked some of the Rangers played in the second one. They brought up new Rangers, and they moved on to the larger town of Shale, where they ended up encountering Kennedy again after dealing with townsfolk and the actual second command of the captain of the second command of the Shale Guard, who was in thrall to Hannah. Well, Hannah, they were expecting to be a Hannah Delir, Kennedy's cousin. They were expecting to be another vampire. She was a werewolf. The two brand new players sit in, and both of them got seriously cool moments on that. The husband and I believe husband and wife, and the husband's character Brinchy cut the head off Hannah in a big dramatic moment, and the wife shot arrows into the heart of Kennedy and killed him. And that's after Machapanta, which is J.R. Tyner's character, his rather robust Brinchy character, had eaten all of Kennedy's bennies and then some, and everybody else. It was a great team effort, it really was. In the finale, they get to the source, as it's called, which is deep beneath the northern hills, and it turns to be an elder vampire by the name of Rocher, who was completely enthralled to Sanguinara, the Blood Witch, one of the godlike beings in charge of the accursed stuff. And she's reaching through the holes created by the Godstrike Tempest, and she'd become aware of things, and so she was pumping this mystic cosmic blood stuff through the veil and the patterns. It got altered, but he was able to take it and make it the central thing that they built, they created and crafted the Skull Drum. But he had also become completely enthralled, and by the time they found his lair and got inside, there was just leechmen pouring out of these pools, and they kept coming. They keep killing them, but they kept coming, and they were going to, basically, until they took out Rocher. Well, we're getting near the end. It was a session that ran a little long. I know, gasp, Sean runs a long session. I'm getting better, by the way. I'm actually really getting better at shorter sessions, but this one ran long. So anyway, JR, Machapanta, dove into the room where Rocher was and drove right through this giant column of stuff that was coming in from the Accursed Lands. And, he does the narrative control thing. Y'all might have watched one of the earlier ones where I talked about narrative control. He spent the Benny, spent the card. And it was well past time, so I said, okay, fine. You just, stab him. You disappear, he disappears. There's a pile of dust. And basically, I was going to drop Machapanta, which, again, was Jared's premier Justice in Life character, his prince of his kingdom that he's created to add to Shaintar. I was going to dump him in the Accursed Lands. He dove in there. I'm like, okay. But another player, Will Gettings, his character, Herod, an Eldakar, Priest of the Light, he spent the Benny, he spent the card, went in there as everybody else was running because the place is collapsing, and a classic, oh no, the magic's gone, it's collapsing thing. But he goes in there and insists on going past the veil, try to rescue his friends. So basically I had them run into Herod outside, who's holding Macha, who's unconscious at this point, but he's waking up. He grabbed him, drug him back, kept him from going, but Macha is marked by Sanguinara, the Blood Witch, and I have consulted specifically with John Dunn and Ross Watson and JR. Fair warning. Yeah, you've got some problems. It's going to be very storytelling-driven stuff. Don't get me wrong. It's not like you're completely screwed, but it's kind of interesting. And Macha's going to have some interesting temptations he's going to have to deal with. Has the lure, the call of the Queen of Blood, who's also the Mistress of Passions, is trying to reach out to a Brinchy. Some of you who know the deeper history, think on that, huh? So that's going to be interesting. So yeah, those holes that got opened up by the Godstrike Tempest, they're not going away anytime soon. In fact, that would be telling. All right, so there's a site redesign in works for Shaintar.com, and I'm pretty excited about that. The right folks are handling it. I'll tell you guys right now, Al Bear is pretty much project manager for all things Shaintar. He's just stepped up so much, and yes, don't worry, I'm taking care of him. He's a part of my team now. He's very much part of the Evil Beagle crew. Got some plans for you, Mark Napick, as well. Mark's been just amazing. He's got this brand new baby and the family going, but he's still giving a lot of love to what's going on, and he and Al have some pretty cool ideas, and the rest of the flock's involved too. It's going to be cool. I'm very happy about that. So work's begun on it, and it's going to be neat. We're planning for the future. We've got some really forward-thinking ideas about what we want to do, about what kind of infrastructure we're going to have on the site, and that kind of thing. So eyes on the future prizes. Work has begun on Guidebook 1, but I'll admit it's going pretty slowly because right now I've got a couple of other things I've got to knock out. Some obligations I've had for a while that have been sitting in front of me, and I've got to get them done. One of which is the third book in the series I'm writing for Deadlands Noir Interactive Fiction. This was announced at Gen Con, so it's not a secret anymore. I've got 2 written, as I said, interactive novella, and there's the third one, and it's starting to write itself in my head, so I'm going to have to take about a week and a half to really just dive into that. So that's coming up pretty soon, and then after that, back to Guidebook 1. So I've got all that information you guys have been sharing. Thank you. Keep bringing it. Got some really great ideas along those lines. I'm going to tell you now, for all the guidebook stuff, where we end up with more material than can go in the book based on projections for how big the books need to be, the rest of it that doesn't go in the books will probably become site content. So it's not like you're going to miss out. It's just it'll be the hard, crunchy stuff and some good material in the published books, and then the rest of it that didn't quite fit, website for web content. Let's see. Think it's a good time. It's a good time for me to go ahead and let you guys know that I have a new plan for the contributor content. Essentially, people who bought kingdoms or towns or other major contributions. I think I already talked about the fact I was doing the Dramatis Heroica, which is basically the big book that's going to collect all the characters, their stories, their stats, pictures of the miniatures that Carinn's doing for them before we mail them out to the players, all of that stuff. We're doing that as a standalone book. Well, basically all the rest of the content contribution stuff is also going to be standalone material. A book of new towns. There may be individual books for each of the standalone kingdoms, or I may just do each one as a separate standalone thing. This is your town. This is your town. I mean, the beauty of 21st century publishing is they can do these standalone products, and it's no big deal. So that way they can get their own individual focus, right? They can be specifically focused upon and standalone, and I don't even have to worry about necessarily restricting them to a specific format style either. If there's an area that you really want to focus on and do a lot more stuff with, we can massage each product to best reflect the stuff that you wanted to come up with. And you'll be working with me, of course, but I'll probably also bring in other authors who I want to work with who can help move those balls forward, so that I'm not trying to write it all myself. So it'll be like with me and I will admit, Tom Clancy-esque, oversight. Everything, comes down from the guy who's got it all in his head, but then working with other really creative people to make it all happen. So that's the plan for those, and we're going to get moving on that more. We'll have more on that down the road. But I just want everybody who's got that kind of content in mind know that now that's coming. There's also going to be a crowdsourcing page where people can also contribute and get a chance to add stuff as well. And again, that's coming, but that a lot has to do with the tie-in to the Savage Mojo site redesign that's going on as well. So more on that when we know more. Okay, quick off the path for people who've been interested in my personal healthcare quest. I'll be getting back to that pretty soon because I have to. I've got a couple of prescriptions I actually did get refilled or restarted basically when I went to go see that urgent care person, and I got to figure something out because they're about to run out, and I probably should stay on them. Diabetes medicine, or blood pressure medicine. So I'm going to have to find somebody pretty soon. I've had to put it aside because my child, she really needed my number one focus, the conventions, a bunch of other stuff. But we're getting back to that soon, so that's on whatever. GM tips and tricks, dealing with players in leadership roles. This came up pretty heavily at MACE, and then I had a really interesting conversation with Flock member Chris Casera, who really kind of hit me in the head with this. So this is me saying this is what I should have done more of, and realizing that I'm going to be doing more of that in the future. But as these are ideas I'm also sharing with you. Help them, give suggestions to them regarding the kinds of things that characters might know, but they don't. Okay, and maybe you're not Mr. Military either, or Miss Military, but you see the picture, you see the big picture, so you can let a character with a good leadership position in on some things that maybe the average character wouldn't notice just by acknowledging that they're the leader, so they spot, hey, that's a bad ambush point, whatever. Realize they're probably not from a military or uniformed service background, or perhaps they are, but the reality of such leadership doesn't apply as well to a cinematic action adventure situation. I mean, there's a lot of people who are former military, but you can't bring that hardcore, realistic military training in because, I mean, it's effective, but sometimes it's kind of boring. They would just kind of chew their way through and set up lines of fire, whatever. And sometimes you want a more action, just dive in. Real military people don't do that unless they have to. But in the movies, they do it because it looks cool. So you got to kind of play with that. If they have actual knowledge battle, let them make a roll, even if they don't have any serious leadership edges that would normally exploit that. Figure some kind of bonus, like an extra Benny to a couple of people who are in key positions, or like a first round, everybody just gets a bonus adventure card. I mean, it's okay to let that take the place of them actually knowing how to give good commands. It's all right to give those extra bonuses to help them fulfill that role that they want to play, but don't necessarily have the right tools to do so. Abstracting is kind of important in those cases. At the same time, if the player is making a lot of mistakes because they're being arrogant, showing hubris, making classic interpersonal mistakes based on aggressive roleplay style, you gotta sometimes let that play out. In character, though. Don't let it become personal. When a moment starts to become personal, shut it down. Hey, look, guys, these are characters. He's playing an aggressive character who maybe is a little headstrong, needs to temper his leadership skills a little bit more. Keep it in character. That's fine. And in fact, this happened. This happened during the game. During the games that I ran at MACE. Macha Panta is young. He's a prince of a kingdom. He's in the Rangers to learn how to become a better leader. But he was a little headstrong in some situations, and he kind of stepped on some toes. And I think JR, the player, understood that. But some of the other players in character had their own attitudes and opinions about it, and it created some interesting interpersonal conflict in the game, like in the movie, right? The characters, which is fine, as long as the players didn't any of them take it personally. I'm pretty proud of everybody because I think it worked out fine. And in the end, they all came together and they did great. Okay, back to some good suggestions. When scouting things up, which is, first off, always be willing to suggest, this might be a good place for you guys to do some scouting ahead. Remind the guy playing the leader that they probably want to send some scouts ahead. Then help them figure it out. Look, let's just go ahead and metagame this a little bit, so make it easy. Who has the best stealth? Find out where their stealth die types are. What's their notice die types are. Find out any relevant edges, relevant powers they might want to employ, that kind of thing. Although it's important, by the way, side note for Shaintar, if it's not adept ability, most powers are going to be a little too obvious to be good for stealthing. I have to admit, Burrow, you got me on that one. Burrow's a pretty damn awesome one. Like druids, most of the druids in my campaigns are starting to find out just how incredible Burrow is. I had one game where I had 2 burrowing ogres. I'm not happy about that, by the way. Not happy about burrowing ogres. It's just, no, but I can't. It's just wrong, and it hurts me deep inside. All right. At the same time, help them figure out the guys who are best for like standing up and taking, tank-like damage, if you would have to use the computer game term, or range threats, things like that. All right, so that's that. Next time, I will, at long last, start getting into some recaps of Shaintar home games. I've been promising that forever, and I'm going to start doing it. I am, because my own players would really like to see it, and I've been told more and more of you would like to see it too. So there'll be that. So we'll be sharing more about that in the future. That's what I got. So you know what comes next. Double time, peace. Double time, out. Of course, I don't have voice command. I just have to find the button. Click.